My name is Shawn, S-E-A-N, Sabo, S-A-B-O. On 9/11, I was a petty officer in the United States Navy. I was stationed on the USS Bunker Hill, a Ticonderoga-class cruiser based out of San Diego, California. We were in the dry docks getting repairs to the ship, berthings, getting new equipment, etc. I was assigned to the MS division, the cooks, to help with their prep, as most departments are assigned to do. It was just after our 6:30 muster. I was cleaning the juice bar as I was assigned to do as one of my tasks. All of a sudden, there was a stampede through the passageway, the hallway, people making their way to the mess deck to the TV. I didn't know what was going on, because usually you never see that many people making that kind of stampede at one time. And I asked what's going on, and as typical in situations where there are attacks, you hear all kinds of stories. We'd heard about the World Trade Center, but we'd heard about the Pentagon. We also heard about Camp David. We heard this, we heard that. We heard all kinds of stories. People were going in there to watch the giant TV to see what was going on. At a certain point during the day, it had been decided by people above the captain of our ship that we were going to sail out of San Diego and presumably go out to sea to avoid any terrorist attacks. The problem with that is we were in dry dock. Among the other things that were being worked on the ship were our berthings. So no one was allowed to sleep aboard the ship unless you were standing guard duty that night and needed a place to sleep. As we were all put up in hotels on the dry side of the base, no one had any clothes on board. So we were facing the prospect of us shipping out to sea with almost all of us having nothing but our individual clothes on our backs. There's a ship store, but you can't outfit over 300 men and women on a handful of t-shirts that aren't going to fit everyone and a couple pairs of underwear, packs of underwear. So once this was pointed out, apparently somebody decided that, all right, we'll give you like 2 hours to go home, pack some clothes, and come back, so that way people will have stuff to change into. And that was then the plan. Another problem was that among the work being done was that in one of my sonar spaces, my sonar control space, there was a hole in the side of the ship about the size of this back wall here, so they could move equipment in. Well, there was no way they were going to be able to fix that hole in 2 hours, so they were going to put a giant piece of tarp over it to patch it up so we could get underway. As we were making preparations, eventually it was decided that we would not ship out to sea. I assume it was because of the issues with the repairs being done to the ship, etc., etc. But even though we stayed, security was escalated so many times. Instead of staying in guard duty maybe every 4th or 5th day, it was every day, and everybody had at least one watch. Some people had 2 watches they had to stay in addition to whatever job they had to do during the day. They had security roadblocks on the pier to our ship. You would have to zigzag up and down to get through, and that's after going through maybe a dozen perhaps a dozen armed guards from the ship. After a couple of days, it started to ease down. It went from every other day to every 3rd day, every 4th day, etc. But even after things returned to normal, or as normal as things can return, things were still different. A prime example is when we got back to the regular piers. Before 9/11, there'd be one person at the guard post, and that's it. So that person could eat a pizza. They could probably read a magazine if it was in the middle of the night. After that, there were at least 2 people at the entrance to every pier, maybe 3, all armed. We had those, I don't know, portable things they put over, so that will shred your tires if you drive on. And we had one person patrolling up and down the piers, the edges of the piers, with a shotgun, looking for people trying to sabotage the ships by putting underwater explosives. Other security details were increased. There were more guard watches than before. Even at months after 9/11, it didn't change. I was on the other side of the base in San Diego, where I'd also gone to school to become a sonar tech, I ran into a gentleman named Tony Page, who was on my first ship, the USS John Hancock, a Spruance-class destroyer. He happened to be at this point he was stationed there as, I believe, a security personnel. And he had a caption up, blah, 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 blah. He asked if I heard about Captain Dolan. Captain Dolan was Captain Robert Dolan, who was my first commanding officer. I said no. And he told me that he had been in the Pentagon on 9/11 and had not made it out. This is a picture of Mr. Dolan. He had been there when I was assigned to that ship in September 1999. He was transferred and made the following year to go to shore duty. I saw him as he was walking off the ship, and I wished him well. He thanked me. Thank you very much, Petty Officer Sabo. Captain Dolan was a real good guy, very friendly. He always had to tread that fine line between being too friendly because he was the commanding officer, but if you were a hard worker, he would try to do what he could for you, as long as you were doing what you were supposed to do and worked hard. As far as I know, nobody else that I know personally was killed in 9/11. I only found out about Captain Dolan from the guy I had served with. I went on the website to try and find his grave. Couldn't find it. I suppose it was a computer glitch. But that's one of those days where I could live to be 100 years old, and I'll still remember cleaning up soda and orange juice from the beverage line when people were coming in. It was like it was almost like the running of the bulls at Pamplona, only in a much sadder state. People not really being able to tell their loved ones why they were shipping out, because we weren't really allowed to contact anyone because of security issues. And when even when I went on my deployment later on, the last deployment before I was discharged, we weren't allowed to tell our family members where we were while we were in port. So if I was in Sydney, Australia, I could not tell my mother in Sydney. Not only could I not tell I was not in Sydney, I could not make references. I couldn't tell I went to a koala zoo or I went to see kangaroos. You had to be very careful what you said so that there was no way people would know you were there. We couldn't tell them before we were pulling in or while we were there. We could tell them after we were left and we're out in the general open sea, but you had to be very careful what you said and who you said it to. That firearm safety was taken very seriously. Not that it never was, but after 9/11, I suppose maybe they were afraid maybe somebody might get trigger happy. I don't know. I can't. That's just a personal opinion. I can't. That's not policy. But things changed after that. I believe you can almost look at our security in the same way like the Greatest Generation looked at before and after Pearl Harbor, before and after 9/11. There's this side and there's no gray area. There's that straight line in history, before, after. I think the most unfortunate thing is that those 20 individuals, I won't honor them, I call them gentlemen, that they all perished in what they did. Not that I would have wanted to take them to trial, because legal matters can take so long and cost millions of dollars, but it is unfortunate that it's so unfortunate that they're able to do what they did. For them to say that that this is in the name of their religion, it was ridiculous. I served with several people who were Muslim, and they were never like it. They were some of the kindest people I've ever met. For those people to use to defend a name or faith is no different to me than if somebody is Christian or Jewish, Hindu, Buddhist, Shinto, or any other religion. But that was, I have to say, that's one of the most memorable days of my life, I suppose. Remembering where I was and what could have been if somebody had somehow been able to get into the harbor like I believe they did right before the Pearl Harbor attack with those mini subs is rather scary, because where I was stationed, we were next to forward gun mounts. If something had hit me back there, there would have been nothing left of us. It would have been, as bad as the coal was, that would have been even worse, because an explosion could have jacked the ship up, straight up or down. But it was an unfortunate, memorable day that I don't see how I could ever forget. And that's my story.